So it depends on how lucky I am when I go spelunking in the shredding room this weekend. So I'll let you know. There's one more. Oh, can I spell it? A sphygmomanometer. You don't know what none of these people know what a sphygmomanometer is? This is how you measure your blood pressure. The blood pressure cuff. Yes. Let's look at your blood pressure versus time. Right? So it looks kind of like this. So it's here, and your heart pumps and squeezes your blood. Oh, and it goes down, and it comes down like that. And then your heart pumps again. Oh, look, it's Justin Bieber. Okay. So there's 2 points on this curve. One way to help you remember this curve is that this is like your academic trajectory, right? So here you are. And this is your systolic pressure. So this is like O week, right? This is high school. See, now you're going to remember it, right? Okay, so systolic pressure is like O week. And then the lowest pressure you ever reach is diastolic pressure. Right, this is when you've been a doctor for 20 years now. Okay, it's a wonderful profession. Okay, so what's on the y-axis? Pressure. What are your numbers? Who was the last person here to get their blood pressure checked? I'm like 10 years ago. Anybody want to share their blood pressure? No? Anybody want to just say a blood pressure? Oh, everybody knows their blood pressure. Like, oh yeah, it's 124/80. Right? So those 2 numbers are your highest, 124, and your lowest, 80. Okay? So a standard, good, healthy person like you, blood pressure is like 120/80, I believe. Does anybody know what the unit is? People actually knew. It's in millimeters of mercury. So just to show you that does medicine follow the standard pressure units? No. They use millimeters of mercury. There used to be mercury everywhere. Like when I was a kid, we had mercury in the house, and I would play with it. Okay, so it used to be very common. Just little drops, and it floats around, and I'm not kidding. It was in thermometers, and it was in my sphygmomanometer, and it was everywhere. Okay, so what happens in the body? Is the heart contracts and the blood actually flows, of course. So we got to get a little bit of Tuesday to really understand what's going on. But basically what I think is interesting to think about is if we draw your arm in the cuff here. So what's really happening is you got your arm in the cuff. So here's your hand, right? And we could plot the pressure versus position. Because you got to think, it's really a weird thing to think about. Is your body a solid or a liquid? Yes, good answer, yes. You're basically, well, it depends on what kind of physics we're doing. You're often just a bag of salt water. So that's more or less what you are here, and the bag is very flexible. So we can treat you like a liquid, but basically the pressure in your arm is around here, and then the cuff just raises it. So the cuff basically controls the pressure in your arm, in this local region of your arm. So it can raise it and do these measurements. If we look in cross-section, then we'd want to think of it like this. Here's your arm. Here's, I guess, the bone. What is that? The radius and the ulna. Ooh, high school. It's coming back. All right. So here's a big blood vessel where all the blood goes, right? Because those are dense. Those are bones. That's a blood vessel. And here we have the bladder, right? This is the cuff bladder, right? So you apply a big pressure here, and it gets transmitted everywhere, and it might shut off the blood vessel when you're high, when you're up here. So you've done this before. The nurse cranks it really hard on your arm, and then they slowly let it down while they look at the stethoscope, right? So when it's all cranked down and shut off, then no blood flows, and they're basically waiting for the pressure to come down, and they're listening for a little squirt of blood, right? So when you hear the first squirt of blood, that's a systolic pressure. That's O weak, right? And then, if you think about it, what's interesting is when it's really high pressure, there's no blood flowing in your hand, right? You do this long enough, your hand would turn blue, right? You don't want to do it too long. But then, when you first start to hear the squirt, that means pressure is squirting in, but on the diastolic, the pressure is low. It's probably not coming out. So if you were to sit it and leave it there for a long time, your hand would start to get really big, right? Because you're putting extra blood in your hand. But fortunately, they're pretty fast, and the pressure keeps coming down. And the difference I hear here is just that it sounds more normal, right? Here you're squirting blood in, and it has nowhere to go. And then once your circulation actually happens, apparently you can hear this difference when you go through the diastolic pressure. And they just measure that The last time I got a blood pressure reading, they measured that off of this kind, off of like a mercury thing that they're looking at on the wall, you know. But now it's all electronic at CVS or something. Has anybody ever actually done this and listened to it in their lives? Some candy stripers? Okay, so you can hear when you go through the diastolic. Is that an okay word still, candy striper? That's just a volunteer, right? I don't know. Whenever I say a word from my deep past, I get nervous. Okay. Candy striper, that's okay, right? Yeah, okay. Do they even say, has anybody ever heard the word candy striper in your life? Okay. There you go. It still exists. Good. I think that means an intern at a hospital. I don't know. This lecture, this never was on the rails, to be honest. Okay.